In the hushed morning air of a corporate office, the daily routine began as usual. Manager Richard Thornton took his first sip of coffee while eyeing the new janitor with a condescending grin. She moved quietly with her mop and bucket, and he sneered behind her back, never suspecting the life lesson about to unfold. He waved his hand dismissively as she polished the floor, whispering to a colleague, "Look at her, pretending to matter here." No one laughed. Some averted their eyes. The janitor, only known as Miss Wright, seemed unfazed by the mockery. Her calm composure stirred something in the air, though Richard was blind to it, the narrator hinted, for her secret bore the weight of a crown. Richard Thornton had built his empire on confidence and cruelty. He ruled the office with an iron fist and a sharp tongue. Every day he passed the janitor's closet and chided Miss Wright for the smallest mishaps, a spilled bucket of mop water or a vacuum that needed repair. The office watched as he barked orders like a captain commanding a broken ship. Despite this, Miss Wright never spoke back. She answered only with respectful nods and a soft smile. Each morning, as she quietly cleaned the halls, she seemed to carry herself with a quiet dignity that no amount of scorn could shake. That morning, something peculiar happened that Richard didn't notice. As he stepped out of the elevator, he made eye contact with Miss Wright in the corridor. She paused her sweeping and met his gaze calmly, as if she recognized something in his eyes. For a fraction of a second, he saw something he had never seen from any janitor, a spark of authority, a flicker of challenge. Then, just as quickly, it vanished as she bent down to tie her shoe. Confused, Richard shrugged it off. The day had bigger annoyances on his mind. Unaware of the storm brewing in the office, Ms. Wright continued her work with serene focus. In the break room, she quietly humored a joke Richard made about her outdated uniform. The others smiled politely but quietly, feeling uneasy. The camera of narration hinted at the irony to come. Ms. Wright poured herself a humble cup of tea, and in that simple act, she looked like someone who cared for the smallest things with greatness. Richard stormed out of the break room, muttering under his breath, blind to the fact that the janitor's gentle salute left his own soul unsettled.
As the day progressed, Richard's targets of ridicule grew. He found a paperclip on the floor and loudly cursed. "This is where I find myself, grabbing after litter thanks to you, Wright." He knew he was laying it on thick, expecting cheers. Instead, the office grew quiet, shadows of sympathy flickering on their faces. Ms. Wright's eyes never left her cleaning, but the narrator pointed out the tension in the air. She worked as if every gesture contained a hidden purpose, though Richard didn't know what might happen next. Through it all, Ms. Wright remained composed. After each outburst, she simply nodded and said softly, "Of course, Mr. Thornton," and carried on with her duties. Her humility seemed almost enviable. The manager could hardly comprehend it. He turned up his nose at her slippers and coarse cotton uniform, imagining how she must have struggled to even find this job. His pride blinded him. He didn't see a broken person. He saw an easy target for scorn and superiority. But the building hummed with a secret energy as the hours ticked by. The narrator's voice grew softer, describing how Ms. Wright cleaned each corner with careful detail, as if she were restoring dignity to each polished surface. It was in these quiet moments, the narrator explained, that the truth hovered like mist. Ms. Wright occasionally paused by the ornate boardroom door, her fingertips brushing the polished wood, and at that moment, the camera of narration lingered. Was it longing, familiarity, or a silent knowledge? She would not answer. One by one, office rumors swirled. Others noticed that despite being mocked, Ms. Wright never lost her peaceful smile. The receptionist whispered that the new janitor never spoke of herself, not where she'd come from or why she wore a simple metal name tag with Wright etched on it. Some employees felt a strange respect growing from Ms. Wright. The more trouble Richard brewed, the more tranquil she seemed to become, as if she fed on his rage and turned it into stillness. The audience felt the dramatic irony. They sensed that she was not just a janitor, but the story kept her secret under wraps.
By mid-afternoon, tension crested. Richard noticed a company announcement on the bulletin, a surprise inspection by the CEO at the end of the week. His heart leapt at the chance to shine before the real boss, not knowing the very person fixing a squeaky door handle was that boss in disguise. He strutted back to Miss Wright and barked an order. "Make sure the CEO's office is spotless. I don't want to hear one complaint from anyone," he snarled. The narrator observed Richard's oblivious arrogance. He might have thought himself mighty, but fate was preparing a lesson. Miss Wright nodded. "Certainly, Mr. Thornton," she replied softly. Then she turned towards the maintenance closet, where something caught her eye. The CEO's immaculate ledger sitting on a shelf. She picked it up to ensure it was safe. Richard misinterpreted her action. In that moment, he hollered, "Are you even touching Mr. Hopkins' private things now?" He advanced on her, red-faced and furious. The janitor's hand stayed steady on the ledger. She looked at him calmly, as if he were overreacting for some unknown reason. But Richard stormed away, leaving her there. The next scene the narrator described was at day's end. Miss Wright locked up her closet and headed toward the exit. The building was nearly empty. Richard was the only one left in the corridor, flipping through the CEO's ledger like it was his own fortune. As she passed him, he sneered, "Leaving so soon?" His tone was mocking, but Miss Wright stopped, her posture erect. The narrative tension built as she turned to face him. Something had changed in her eyes. No fear, only a steady calm, and Richard suddenly felt chilly. "Yes, Mr. Thornton," she said, her voice firm and clear. The calmness in her tone was unnatural, and Richard's stomach turned. He realized with a shock that she was speaking with the authority of a leader, not a servant. In the silence of the hall, she heard her next words, "I am not the janitor you think I am." He froze. His mind raced. The narrator slowed time, letting each word sink. Miss Wright removed her cleaning cap and straightened, revealing neatly styled hair and an aura of confidence.
"You believed yourself a great man because you bossed others around," she continued, voice unwavering. "But real greatness is shown by how you treat people when you have no advantage over them." Each syllable sounded like thunder in Richard's ears. He recognized the face before him. It was the woman who greeted him at the door every morning, the CEO of this company, Eliza Wright. Shock flitted across Richard's face as her secret was laid bare at last. The scene erupted in stillness. He had mocked her all day, and now the janitor was the boss. The weight of irony hit him like a wave. Eliza's eyes were measured and cool, yet full of disappointment. "I spent a day in your shoes," she said quietly, "and I learned how blind I once was." Richard stood rigid, words failing. The narrator's voice paused as justice hung in the air. The powerful manager now faced the quiet woman he had scorned. In a hush, Eliza motioned for Richard to follow her into the boardroom. Wordlessly, he obeyed, his pride dissolving with each step. Behind him, his office lights flicked off, symbolic of the shift in power. The boardroom's large door clicked shut behind them. Inside, the senior staff were gathered in surprise. They all looked at Richard with new eyes as Eliza took the center seat. In stunned silence, she announced, "Richard, from this moment on, you are under my supervision." Richard's mouth opened and closed. The same people who once cowered from him now sat tall. They exchanged glances. They had known of the CEO's plans for a day in disguise, but never imagined it would be in their own building. "I wanted to see how employees are treated from the bottom up," Eliza explained. "I wanted to see truth, humility, and integrity in action." She paused and fixed Richard with a piercing gaze. "You failed this test," Eliza said calmly.
Today, you acted as if anyone who served you was nothing. But that service holds the heart of this company. They deserve respect." Her words were quiet, but cut through the room. The narrator noted how justice was finally unfolding. Richard, once arrogant and untouchable, could only swallow back his pride now. A hush descended. The employees' eyes glistened. Some felt vindicated. Richard tried to speak, to defend himself, but no words came. His voice cracked when he finally managed, I apologize, ma'am." The apology was stilted. Eliza nodded, acknowledging it. She then said softly, "Apologies begin the journey, but the wound is deep." She gave him a look that mixed disappointment with an invitation to improve.
With that, she turned to the team. The room exhaled collectively as respect returned to its rightful place. Employees who had endured Richard's cruelty now watched as he stood behind the same janitor turned CEO. Many felt tears of relief and vindication. The CEO spoke again, voice like a gentle lesson. "Kindness and humility, this is how we grow stronger, not by stepping on others." The company staff silently absorbed the truth that had been delivered with dramatic irony. Richard Thornton left that room a changed man. He trudged back to his office, powerless as he had made others feel. Behind him, the CEO's silhouette disappeared into the hallway. The final words of wisdom echoed through the corridors, a life lesson wrapped in gentle authority. Outside the CEO's door, Richard paused. The office lights glowed warmly inside as Miss Wright closed her ledger and walked out into the evening sky. He watched her go, realizing he had learned a lesson the hard way. But was it enough? The narrator left the question hanging. The manager would now face a future he could only guess at. As Richard stared at the empty hallway, his heart heavy and humbled, one last shadow moved behind the CEO. A faint light spilled across the office floor. The scene froze with promise. The tale was not truly over. There were new challenges coming. The audience could feel it. Justice had been served today, but tomorrow's story hung in the balance, waiting to be told. In the hushed aftermath, the office hummed with a different quiet. Richard Thornton stood at the center of it all, feeling oddly exposed. The moment he had mocked the janitor was no longer a distant memory, but a truth unmasked. After Eliza Wright's calm revelation that she was the CEO in disguise, everything around him felt altered. His employees, once shadows under his rigid gaze, exchanged cautious glances and subtle smiles.
The room felt lighter. Conversations carried at a gentler pitch. He realized with a shock how truly alone he had become. He had believed they were loyal subjects. Now he saw only people learning to breathe again. Richard's palms rested on the desk as he gathered himself. He heard collaborative murmurs from behind cubicle walls, Marisol sharing notes with Henry, David guiding a new intern on how to scan documents. These tasks he once insisted upon were now given freely out of respect. It unsettled him to realize that without his driving force, people found their own reasons to work together. He even heard distant laughter in the break room and voices rising softly in conversation. At one time, he had derided their gentle teamwork as chaos. Now he recognized it as community. He felt a pang of uselessness. If they could thrive without his orders, what need was there for him? In the silence, Richard's mind replayed the confrontation. He saw Eliza Wright's eyes, steady and kind as she spoke. Her measured words were a mirror showing him the hurt he had caused. There was no shouting, only a clear statement of the wrongs and what must change. He remembered her calm reminder to respect the dignity of every person. Under that gaze, he felt smaller than he had ever felt before. He realized she had not offered him the satisfaction of anger or fear, only the truth laid bare. When he looked up, he noticed how differently the group regarded him. They did not cheer or mock. they simply watched. A few faces, now strangers without fear, held quiet pity. For the first time, he felt transparent. They could see exactly who he was. He realized how alone he truly was. Maria, the secretary, caught his eye and held out a stack of missed papers. Calmly, she told him they needed signing. Her tone was polite, almost neutral, carrying no anger or warmth. He nodded and took the papers. In the late afternoon, Richard found himself in an unexpected meeting. Sunlight spilled across a conference table where he no longer sat at the head. Instead, he was a guest among colleagues and HR. The room held uneasy anticipation. One by one, staff quietly recounted their grievances. He noticed them. Janet's eyes downcast, Michael's sitting silent, and realized each complaint cut deeper than he expected. He listened, wanting to defend himself, claim he meant well, but his defenses felt thin. His voice caught as he tried to speak. Even the apology he had drafted sounded hollow. At last, he managed only that he was wrong. They listened quietly, and no more needed to be said. He left the meeting without a grand farewell, quietly nodding to Eliza in the hallway. She gave only a gentle acknowledgement. At home, Richard could not find rest. The silence of his house felt stifling, and every sound seemed amplified. He had never imagined that silence could be so loud. He had always prided himself on having the right answer, but now in darkness, he had none.
He lay awake, listening to his heartbeat and replaying images. The janitor carrying trays of coffee, the intern's hopeful face, the frightened eyes he had commanded. Each memory pressed against him like an accusation. Dawn brought a new routine. Those he had led now communicated without the fear that once bound them. The office was healing. He noticed small changes, a friendly greeting in the break room, a respectful question instead of a curt order. Each ordinary task, making coffee, booking the meeting room, was done by people for each other rather than at his command. He noticed things he had overlooked: family photos on desks, tidy plants by the windows, the hum of printers set to work without anyone shouting. He felt a pang of regret that he had never seen these details before. He felt surplus, a cog no longer needed in the machine. In the weeks that followed, Richard carried on without a title. The company offered him a new position anywhere, but he chose something small, an afternoon shift, cleaning a supply closet and empty meeting rooms. He did it dutifully. The first time he picked up a dust cloth, the plastic felt foreign in his hand, but as he worked, he noticed small things. How dust danced in sunbeams, how it settled quietly on surfaces. He cleaned methodically, and each flick of the cloth felt necessary in a way his old orders never did. These chores were simple and unglamorous, but he realized they were real. For the first time, he understood what honest work without an agenda meant. It did not erase his failures, but it grounded him. He cleaned with care, surprised to find a small satisfaction in each task. Unlike his old orders, each bit of dust he wiped away made a difference that lasted. Richard even reflected on the irony. The man who had once mocked the janitor now found himself doing similar tasks, and for the first time, he felt a strange pride in doing them well. Outside the office, life was strangely ordinary again. Morning silence returned at home. He brewed coffee for himself without glancing at a laptop, and read the local paper while the house was still dim. One weekend, he helped a neighbor fix a leaky faucet, a small kindness that cost nothing but time.
Slowly, he began to rebuild quiet rhythms of a life that was his own. He knew this was not some grand redemption. Losing his job had done no one a favor. But in these ordinary tasks, he saw growth where before there had been none. He found something reassuring in the simplicity of these quiet moments. Life felt unhurried now, and he allowed himself to embrace it. When dusk fell, he sometimes lingered in the driveway, watching the sky's faint glow. Colors settled gently across the quiet street, and he allowed himself a grateful smile at that simple sight. He found it strange that no work call broke the silence. There was no urgent demand for him. Repercussions lay ahead. Rumors of his reputation, the sting of joblessness, the long work to rebuild trust. Yet in that moment, there was peace. No one needed anything from him, only the evening's hush and the faint aroma of coming rain. In that gentle dusk, he finally let his shoulders relax for the first time in weeks. He had even started to crave nothing more than an early night and a good book, luxuries his old life rarely afforded. He thought of the team back at the office, working with true cooperation rather than fear. Their future seemed brighter now, he reflected, thanks to what they had learned. He had no planned future. His path was blank, and oddly, he was at peace. He had learned to tread lightly and speak softly, and each step felt worth taking. He had no illusions of grandeur left. The world would move on, with or without him, and that was okay. In that quiet resolution, Richard stood taller despite losing what he once valued.
His world had been pared down, but in that reduction, he found something intact, the chance to rebuild the man he wanted to be. He knew this path was not quick or easy. His mistakes weren't easily undone, but somehow the silence had given him clarity. The lesson sank in slowly, unnoticed until it could bloom anew. In silence, he finally understood. Transformation often comes not with thunderous climax, but in the hush after the storm. He felt that true justice had been served quietly, its consequences echoing forward. He expected scars to remain, but they felt less painful now, more instructive. He would remember the janitor, the CEO who treated him with fairness, and the coworkers who persevered through uncertainty. Perhaps this chapter ends without a grand reunion or triumphant applause. Instead, it settles like the sun setting gently, promising a new dawn. The lesson was clear. Humility earned through real consequence can guide a flawed soul toward understanding. The office was not about who wielded power, but about the shared purpose of people. Richard would remember the janitor, the CEO, and his coworkers not with bitterness, but with quiet gratitude. He had finally learned to respect them. In the end, he understood that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned, often grown from the quiet seeds of understanding. The quiet consequences had brought a wisdom no sudden change could match.